Okay, so we're appearing not to be able to get back live, but we're recording. So if we manage to fix that, it'll kick in partway through our meeting, but we'll upload the rest of this after, just so we can keep it going. So I believe, Stephen, you were still on.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's possible to bring up the PowerPoint presentation, or is that lost?
That's okay. Oh, I just tried to make it co-host.
Oh, well, thank you. I can see it.
No, I can too. I think we're good.
Okay, do you want me to carry on, Councillor Bridgeman? Chair
Yes,
Bridgeman?
please.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Anyway, this was the initial proposal, and if we go to the next slide. Yeah, this is an overlay. I got a little bit of a primitive overlay, but showed the existing and the proposed. This was the initial proposal. Next. Oh, next. This is just a close-up of it. Next. And then we have done a revision. I suppose some people may think not a large revision, but anyways, let's go to the next slide. I did have, thank you. I did have a discussion with Mr. Pink regarding this, you know, and it's always tough to know how far do you go down in terms of size of a dock, what's reasonable. And in this case, we have a current to deal with. We have stability at the end of the dock, which currently the small little T doesn't provide right now. There's elderly people involved. So we did have a discussion, and Dave and I concluded that, you know, sort of 8 feet is the sort of the maximum size I guess you could have for a dock before you start considering it to be a deck. And gone are the days of, you know, 4-foot wide docks. I think 6 feet is the norm, and in fact 8 feet for some people is getting to be fairly normal. So, but I would say that that's the largest that I would suggest in a width that would still be kept as a dock as opposed to a deck over the water. And again, we're down to a net of 80 square feet, or as I say, a modest or small garden shed. Next. So again, this is the dwelling on the property. Next. And this is the dock, and you can see the line of, the angled line of cedar trees is roughly the property line. Thank you. Next. And this is the property as it extends out. And again, on the right-hand side, that is roughly the angle of the lot line. You can sort of see the angle there. Next. And that's the rock. That's actually the closest point, and that's where the measurements for the offset for the length of the dock actually take place from. And that is in accordance with the zoning bylaw. Next. And you can see the neighbor's dock, and distance from about the middle of each of those docks are roughly 50 feet. Next. And this is a view back into the neighbor's property. His dwelling is not close to this side lot line. His dwelling is on the other portion of the lot and faces directly out to the water. It does not face towards this dock. Next. And this is the view from my client's dock to the neighbor's dock. If you're out on the lake, you wouldn't know anything about the lot lines in this case. You would actually look. This is an urban situation, so we have to keep in mind the side yard setback's only 15 feet. These are roughly 50 feet apart, so certainly in an urban situation, this is a pretty good separation. Next. And this is sort of looking down the lot line, the projected lot line towards the dock. Next. And this is actually up on my client's deck. And unfortunately, that lot line, again, goes, when the lot was created, goes actually in front of the dwelling, which is very unfortunate. Next. So again, as mentioned, I mentioned a bit about the lot. It was created in 1978, and they had to add this little appendage to it to meet the frontage requirements at that time. But unfortunately, there's quite an angle at the shoreline. And the dock setback at that time in the old bylaw, the bylaw 577, was only 5 feet, and it had to be at the shore only. You could actually go across the projection as long as you were 5 feet away at the shore. Next. And this is just showing the projected lot lines now transposed onto the Goldberg property. Next. And this is what he's left with for a buildable area, which is too shallow and rocky, and the existing Dock has existed there for many, many years and goes across the projection. Next. And I just noted many years, well, since 1969, and it complied with the bylaw at that time, and now it's legal non-complying. Next. So I just wanted to mention, oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but the existing cribs, I know I went through this before and I won't now, but they are to be used and there's certain advantages to that. Next. My client did contact both DFO and MNRF. He only got a general letter back, but he certainly talked to staff there and they were not concerned. They did not request a fish habitat study. Again, we're looking at a very small addition, 8 feet by 10 feet. Next. And the increase in the width of the dock, just so that you know, it does comply with the zoning bylaw. There's no issue there, and it does not go closer to the neighbor. And there's good separation from the neighbor's dock. And the length out into the water is the same as it was before, 53 feet. Next. In my opinion, the proposed dock does not impede the view from the neighbors from a practical point of view. I know what the fish plan policy says, although that is actually in the waterfront. We're in the urban area, so I think that has to be taken into account as well. And the privacy impact is going to be very minimal with an 8 foot by 10 foot increase in size of the dock. Next. I just want to talk about the lot line projection, and I know that that committee, they wanted to see that struck out, but I just wanted to make a few points, and obviously committee will make its decision. Obviously a change in the lot line projection facilitates this proposal, but it also prevents a neighbor from constructing a dock, which can potentially come right pretty much to my client's dock if it follows the lot line projection. And of course, my client's very concerned about that. The other concern is the neighbor happens to perceive that they own the water in the bed of the river within the projected side lot line. Anytime my client has tried to put a boat on the west side of the dock, the neighbor has complained saying that, you know, that's on his property, and it's not really. And in fact, fortunately this year there hasn't been any problems between the neighbors, but there has been in the past. And I would also note too that the township has amended lot line projections in the past. It's not common, but it has happened. And staff was good enough to pass along a few examples of those in previous years. Next. So I won't go through all of these. I believe that there's a number of points in favor of this application, you know, in terms of the existing crib being used. It's not a big impact to the neighbor. If we go to the east, it's shallower and rocky. And unfortunately, the projection of the side lot line is what it is and shouldn't have occurred. Next. And lastly, I think, you know, again, the increase in size of the dock is pretty small. It does need to be at a reasonable size for stability, though. Again, I can't emphasize that enough because of the current that's there and the fluctuations. And again, the dock has been there for about 40 years. In my opinion, it's within the general intent of the OP and the zoning bylaw. So I'm hoping that committee will see their way through to an approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fauner. Committee, any questions? Oh, if the owner, I'm sorry, then let's let the owner speak first. Sorry about that. Mr. Goldberg, here you are. There you are. Please. A little louder, please, or closer.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good day, Madam Chair and Planning Committee members. I hope that you're all doing well and staying safe. Just to remind you, I'm Dr. Bernie Goldberg, and together with my wife, Sherry, we are the owners of 1021 River Street in Bala. I just want to emphasize a few main points. A portion of our existing dock needs to be replaced. It is not safe. Our floating dock is too small, too light, and unstable and very wobbly, making it unsafe for docking our modest 17.5-foot boat, as it rocks excessively with passing waves. It is not safe for entering and exiting our boat, and it is not safe for entering and exiting the water for swimming. We have elderly parents, and we all hopefully will be elderly one day ourselves, and it is not safe for them as there is a significant risk of falling as it wobbles. Thus, we have proposed to replace our unsafe floating dock with a new floating dock, which is heavier, better constructed, sits slightly elevated above the water for added stability, and will be the proper size to safely dock and park our boat. Being mindful to our neighbor to the west, docking the boat along the south end of the new floating dock is further away from our neighbor as compared to docking it on the west side of the crib dock. Also, taking into account your comments previously, the revised floating dock size was reduced by 20%, and the overall dock length was reduced, such that it will be the same length as the current dock. The proposed floating dock will be positioned 3 feet to the east of the current floater, hence 3 feet further away from the abutting neighbor to the west. In addition, as you can see from the revised site plan, which you were shown previously, the additional square footage is to the east side of the existing dock. It's the red hatch marks that were in the diagram, which is 12 feet to the east of the existing dock. Thus, the proposed dock will not encroach further into the abutting neighbor's recreational swimming area, which was a concern for them. My family and I thoroughly enjoy our home in Bala, and we fully support the local businesses and community. In fact, my son, Dr. Daniel Goldberg, works as a dentist in Gravenhurst, serving the community. We want to enjoy all that Muskoka has to offer. To do so requires your support in permitting us to replace the unsafe portion of our dock so we can safely enjoy our Muskoka waterfront. I feel that our proposal today is reasonable and is mindful of our neighbors and the concerns of the Planning Committee. Thank you for your time. I hope you all stay well and stay safe.
Thank you, Dr. Goldberg. Committee, Councillor Zavitz, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Back when this first came to planning, there were quite a number in support and quite a number in opposition. Are those numbers, as I'm hearing through Mr. Fauner, now 2 in opposition, 9 in support? Is that the most current? So did 9 or 11 people at least participate this time? Or is that a staff question? Sorry, through you, Chair.
I'm not sure what you're asking, Councillor Zavitz.
Oh, sorry. Well,
or maybe Mr. Allen knows, though. He's raising his hand, so I'll just turn it over to him.
good, thank you.
Thank you. Through you. No additional comments have been received from the public since the initial public meeting. So Mr. Fauner is referring to the initial comments that were received back in March.
Thank you. So supplementary, if I might. Thank you, Chair. So the neighbor who was very obviously in opposition to this has not expressed any more interest in this file. Question.
Mr. Allen?
Through you. The neighbor did not request notice of any future additional meetings, so notice was not provided. This application was returning.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? I'm not seeing any hands, so I am going to read the motion. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommend to Township Council that application ZBA-04/19, bylaw 2019-22 Goldberg, roll number 7-9-071 be approved subject to the following. 1, the exemption to permit the reprojection of the westerly side lot line be defeated. 2, a revised site plan is provided that no longer includes a reprojection of the westerly lot line. And 3, an exemption to permit a 0 foot side yard setback be added. Any comments, committee? Then all in favor? You have it? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Goldberg.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now going to go on our agenda. We're going to go back. I think that that concludes all of our delegations. And so we are now going to return to number 6, zoning bylaw official plan. So I believe, Director Pink, that this one is yours.
Thank you, Chair Bridgeman. Prepared a report on your agenda packages. I believe it starts on page 275. I think as committee members are well aware, we're in the midst of an official plan review process. We were in the early stages of phase 3, essentially concluded phase 2 when the pandemic hit, and put the project on a bit of a hiatus. As you likely all recall, we have since resurrected that project, had a number of workshops to refine policy directions, and we are, actually I would note that the Township's Engage Muskoka page has been updated this week with links to those policy directions, our online survey, and information on a meeting coming up later this month. So with that, obviously, that delay due to the pandemic, we needed to look at the work program, and I've been working with the consulting team to come up with a revised work program for this project to make sure it can conclude, and I've prepared a report and attached that as an appendix that outlines the new work program. The items I would highlight are with respect to overall timing, originally slated to hopefully conclude by the end of this year. We're now looking at the fall of 2021. It has clearly evident with the project to date that there's a significant interest by council in the project, and as witnessed by the number of additional meetings we've held to date, the consulting team and I felt we needed to include some additional meetings in the work program in order so that we can have a fulsome discussion. So I believe it is a total of 11 additional meetings were added to the work program, and there are some comments in the report as to the financial implications of that, and that'll come up during the 2021 budget process. And I think the last item I would point out is, as also witnessed, the original RFP and work program included a working committee, and again, there was a clear desire amongst council and planning committee to become more involved in that project, and the new work program would have, similar as to what we did for the policy direction workshops, future meetings will be joint official plan review working committee and planning committee meetings, so as to avoid duplicate meetings throughout the whole process. That would be a significant cost and be somewhat of an odd process to have back-to-back meetings in each instance. So happy to answer any questions, and hopefully that explains further the staff report.
Okay, committee members, anybody care to comment? Councillor Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, I do have
You
a
need to
few.
oh, I'm muted.
You okay? Are we okay to go?
Yes, you are.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, I do, I think it would be unwise to delay approval of this revised work plan as summarized by staff, but I do have a couple of comments and requests, and I beg your leniency. The original work plan was aggressive in regards to overall timing with completion of the project that we had, and as we all know, where you can we didn't meet any of the milestone dates or the dates of activity dates in 2019, and we sort of got back on track in 2020, and but COVID got in the way. So I guess the first question I have is the work plan that's put forward, Mr. Pink. Is it an aggressive plan, or do you think that you strongly feel that we're going to achieve these dates?
Mr. Pink?
Just to clarify, I think we were on track originally. I think what happened is the original work plan had the discussion papers coming in individually or in batches, and instead it was one larger comprehensive discussion paper at the end. But as you noted, in 2020, we were on track and on schedule. But thank you for that question, because I would agree with you completely. The original work plan was quite aggressive, was quite optimistic to have brought it to fruition essentially fairly soon. I think September or October this year is the original slated. I think, if anything, if there is a silver lining, I think what the pandemic has done is essentially moved us to have policy directions and have that public consultation now in August and September and October on the policy directions, have more time over the winter to produce the first and second versions of a new official plan and be able to review those with the planning committee and working committee during the off season, so that next spring we can come and have more public consultation in the statutory public meeting on new official plan policy. So I guess to directly answer your question, it's still a fairly aggressive schedule, but I think it's preferred over our original. I think it's more realistic. I think the additional meetings were definitely needed. And I hope to, again, keep this project on schedule and complete it in this revised work plan.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to continue, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Well, please go ahead.
Okay, so the report outlines that council needs to be prepared to make timely and effective decisions during the process, but I have a concern with staffing as it pertains to the many significant projects we have underway during this in parallel with the official plan. The resort, such as the resort village of Manette, the comprehensive review of the commercial resort policies, and the community improvement plan for both Bella and Port Carling, and of course the strategic plan. And I'm probably missing a couple other ones, but these are all be demanding and will be taking time from council, but more importantly, it's going to be taking time from staff. And we do have a cost increase from the consultant time, but we do not measure the impact on staff and how much more time we're asking people that are already busy people to do project work. So I'm a bit concerned with those parallel pieces of work and the quality of information that we'll get back in a timely way. And I'm concerned, Mr. Pink, that if you're going to be project managing all the planning ones, that's one heck of a workload given your new position, as well as the point that you'll probably maintaining or hiring new planners. So I just want you to take that under advisement, you and the CAO. There's one pile of work there, and I think you should consider, because of all these projects going on, we should consider right now engaging a project manager to manage all these projects for us, because there's a lot of information. So I just want you to take that under advisement, and that would be my suggestion. In the report, you identified a cost increase of course, from the consultant point of view, but and it was a ballpark figure, a figure of approximately $20,000 that we're into it. You will recall that during the RFP, the Meridian did provide a proposed budget with manpower in it, and I'm wondering if we shouldn't be updating that spreadsheet with actuals and your forecasted numbers. So we better be more on top of what's actually being spent. I think there could be credits. I know we did go over, but there could be credits that should come back our way. And I would have to get into the cost to look at it. But for example, the pop-ups we're not doing anymore. And we did take out the Manette piece out of the official plan. I would propose that you add key milestones just to make sure that we stay on track. Milestones, and those milestones would be the first draft, the second draft, the final draft, and preparation of the final official plan as milestones. Just milestones on this schedule, so that you could plan to come to the appropriate planning meeting to give us a checkpoint of where we are, how much we spent, and what we need to do to adjust schedule. So that's a suggestion I would like to see in there. in the staff report, it says that the open house and public meeting practices and procedures in regard to the pandemic continue to evolve, and the format is yet to be determined. We do have our first public meeting. What is it, next Saturday, the week of this Saturday? And I think it would be kind of good if you put that in a better communication way on our website, that what's exactly happening, what's expected, during that meeting. So I expect there'll be a lot of people wanting to register to do it. And when I went in and looked at it on the web page, I looked in at the survey and I looked in at the invite. I think it's too small off to the right. You should maybe be the most boldest thing on the page so people can see when they go into the official plan site. It jumps out at them. You have to go looking for it. So that's it. And then finally, I did like the survey. I think the survey will how you grouped it and stuff like that. And you should get some feedback. But this is really a big concern of mine. When I was involved with OPA 47 with the district and the meeting that Councillor Edwards chaired way back in the fall a few years ago, there were many people that spoke. There was many people or many delegates who provided information, but from an observation from the side of someone who delegated, it just seemed to be listened to, but there was no response. And there was a disappointment from the public that, the councillors listened or the district listened, but they really didn't come back and actually reply to anyone's suggestions. And I think this is warranted. And we needed, if we said that engaging the public was one of our most key important things. Well, we have the meetings, but we got to demonstrate to them that we listened. And I think we need to figure out a way with someone, for example, and I'm just pulling this right out of the air, if it's suggested that for quarries that it should go from 2 kilometers to 4 kilometers, that planning should respond in one document, not the individuals, that just state that, and this is just my opinion, that 4 kilometers is not really feasible, given that the PPS says that they encourage aggregates, and if we did that in Muskoka, we have no aggregates. So this is the type of thing I really think we should be considering. So that was a lot of stuff, but I wanted to rattle it off, food for thought. But I really am serious about something like we did on the budget. You recall on the budget, constituents sent in their comments on the budget, and the CAO, as the acting treasurer or someone, replied to each one of them or grouped them together, and that at least demonstrated that we had heard them and we had considered it and our thoughts. So I'll just go on mute now, but that's my input to this, and I do support approving this and getting this moving along.
Councillor Roberts, would you? Okay. Director Pink would like to comment on your comments.
I think there were some questions in there. I won't comment. I know a lot was just advisement, and I appreciate your comments, Councillor Roberts. But just on a few things, you mentioned the budget with respect to potential credits. I would note a couple things. There are some savings, thankfully, with digital meetings. We're not paying mileage and travel time for the consultants. So each time we have these Zoom meetings with the consultant, there's some small savings there. Those have been incorporated. There's actually not savings with the pop-up. As you may recall, Laura is coordinating that online public meeting. It's next Saturday on the 26th. So instead of the pop-up events, there's going to be that meeting that they're running. That was the replacement, and that was discussed at one of the workshops as the replacement. And I would note, actually, the lead consultant had lengthy discussions with them on the budget. I think they're swallowing about $5,000 to $10,000 right now in unpaid work to keep us sort of on budget as we are now. But going forward with the 11 additional meetings, there are the costs to that'll come in next year's budget. So there's that. Excellent questions on the public engagement and the more info on the website. Actually, you might note on your agenda, there's a discussion item next, and that's where I was looking for more information from Planning Committee and Council. And then once I receive that, the plan is to update the website as soon as possible with those additional details for the public. But I did want to run a few things by planning committee so that we have a good understanding of what the meeting on the 26th looks like. And lastly, on the replying to all submissions, you will note in the work program that the consultant is producing a summary report of all the submissions. And there are a number of meetings to go through those submissions with the planning committee and working committee. And I believe through that process, there can be a document produced as to what the outcomes are of all those grouped themes that we received through the submissions.
Okay, just a supplement, if you don't mind.
Nope, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm encouraged that there will be a summary report, but it's really got to demonstrate to the constituents that we'd heard them, and this is how we're going to do moving forward. As far as the costing and all that, I'm just used to a discipline where when you change costing or you change the schedule or something like that, we just don't receive it $20,000. We actually know the puts and takes and stuff like that, so there are no questions. So that's again is for future projects that a discipline we should get into. Thank you.
Do you want to speak?
Just to maybe clarify my comments, the 20,000 roughly additional that will be coming forward in next year's budget as a result of the 11 additional meetings. There are actually a number of unpaid work to date that's historical because of the additional meetings we've had to date. As you know, the policy direction workshop was to be 1 meeting. It stretched into 4, it's technically even 5. So, due to lack of travel time and some mileage savings, we managed to sort of agree with a consultant to keep us on track to this date. We're slightly over budget, but the $20,000, as I say, will be up for council consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I am going to read the motion. Moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommended Township Council that the revised official plan review work plan be approved and that staff be directed to include the requisite funds in the draft 2021 operating budget for Council's consideration to enable completion of the revised official plan review work plan. Any comments? All those in favor? You good? Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So, Mr. Pink, I think you want to move on to the meeting on September 26th. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bridgeman. And as was just touched on in the last topic, there is a meeting scheduled, I think, as you're aware. We talked about it at the last policy direction workshop. There's a meeting on Saturday, September 26th at 9:30 a.m. Perhaps somewhat of a unusual request, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way. But I think, Councillor Roberts, you mentioned it as a public meeting, and I just want to clarify so that committee is well aware of the terminology and what exactly that means. There is required under the Planning Act at least one statutory public meeting through this process. Actually, through the entire official plan review process, all we have to do is one open house and one public meeting. In a traditional public meeting, in the sense under the Planning Act, is you would have a lineup of speakers, you'd have written submissions, and one by one, the public could address council with their comments. The meeting on the 26th is a public meeting in the sense that it's open to anyone in the public, but I want to be clear, this is not the statutory public meeting under the Planning Act. We are doing this well above and beyond our requirements. Now, what the consulting team and I envisioned was, rather than a traditional, again, planning public meeting where we have a lineup of speakers and one by one they relay their comments to council, we were envisioning more of a community engagement work style type session where we actually may have breakout groups with individual, the two, Mr. Diamond and Mr. McDonald and myself, leading perhaps 3 individual groups, perhaps breaking down the more significant or more, again, those policy directions out of the, I believe it's 29 in total, perhaps breaking down those of most interest to the public who are in attendance, and having breakout groups and discussions with those to talk about that, and facilitating and leading those discussions. And that's the type of meeting we envision here rather than a public meeting. What that lends itself to is some difficulty, I will say, on behalf of the clerk. We obviously, the assumption was councillors would all like to attend. What that means is it will have to be a formal public meeting, or sorry, a formal meeting of planning committee. And what that means is it needs to be live streamed, recorded, and it needs, the clerk needs to be able to see all councillors on the screen at all time and make sure we have quorum and all the proper procedural bylaw rules are followed. So it poses some challenges when we don't know what to expect, whether there be 50, 100, maybe even 200 people may attend this meeting. It's going to be very challenging over Zoom to run a workshop style session and breakout groups and still keep the clerk happy. So what the somewhat odd request is I'm looking to council, and certainly if the wish is to have a traditional public meeting, we can certainly do that with the consulting team. But if council is willing to not attend, and certainly you would be able to, we will record and we will put the recording online. You can all watch at your convenience after. If you were to not attend, then it would not be a meeting of council, and it would give us a little more freedom and flexibility as to how to run that meeting. The one positive, it might free up your Saturday morning and you can watch the recording whenever you wish at a later date. So just looking for some direction there. I'm certainly again at the will of council. If you wish to all attend and participate more, then certainly I can go back to the consulting team and we can organize that. So that's the information I was waiting for until we formally updated the website and gave the public more details on what it looked like.
Okay, thank you. So Director Pink, I mean, this meeting is supposed to be about public input, not our input. We're going to have lots of chance after that to do it. So just to sort of emphasize that, I would be happy. I think it will be a much smoother, easier meeting if we don't make it an official meeting. So that's just my comment. And I know it was supposed to come at the end, but it came first this time. It's 3 o'clock. Okay, Mayor Hardy.
I am very happy not to make this a public meeting and to watch it later on. This is our planning staff presenting information. In the words, I'm fired, I'm out.
Oh, Councillor Roberts.
Very creative, great idea. Let's do it. I would love to be there and I'll watch it, but I think, David, we'll leave it in your capable hands and Laura's and the consultant.
Well, that's what I don't know, Councillor Hayes and Edwards, if you're going to agree with that, maybe we can just say, ask everybody for a yes. If you want to make another comment, then please keep your hand up. Otherwise, okay, it's still up. Councillor Hayes.
Yes, I plan to promote this with the public with an email blast. David, what do you anticipate? I know it starts at 9:30. Do you have any idea how long it will last so that I can let them know so they're prepared?
We're hoping to wrap up at 12.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, you got that? They were hoping to wrap up at noon? Okay. Councillor Edwards, do you have anything more?
I was just getting so used to the Zoom meetings. I was looking forward to it, but I will step back and let the public have their say. Thank you.
Okay, so I think you have your answer, Director Pink and Clerk Mortimer. I think we're all fine with that. So okay, thank you. All right, so now we are going to go over to, I believe we're now at long range planning and B, the report from the manager of planning regarding first story boathouse use. And Mr. Allen, I don't know how much you need to say. This was put in back in our agenda. Any initial comments in the beginning?
Sure, I'll be quick as possible. This discussion item was added to the agenda specifically because of the last round of meetings. There was an application on Tobin's Island for increased dock and boathouse length, and there was a slip that was shown on the proposed plans that was a dry slip. I think it may have been Councillor Zavitz that called it a Samsung slip, or is that Councillor Kelly? So we had indicated to staff that, or indicated to the committee that staff had prepared an information report that we brought forward last year. So we have added that report back to the agenda for review. Just as a very high level, the reason why staff initiated this report back in January 17, 2019 was because we saw an increasing trend of, nice interior, Councillor Zavitz. We noticed an increasing trend of number of boathouses and building permits being issued with filled-in slips, in some cases no slips. So we realized that the bylaw enforcement challenges related to that, and we thought it was prudent to have a discussion item in front of the committee. So we've brought that report back for further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mayor Harding, I see you'd like to make a comment.
Thank you, and I appreciate the report. One comment, page 356 of the report, number 7, staff concerns. Staff are primarily concerned with habitable space because it does not comply with the requirements of a zoning bylaw and septic system capacity. I'm not sure how putting a couch in my boathouse has an issue with septic capacity. If the boathouse is built according to plan and there's a bathroom on the first floor of the boathouse, by putting a couch there or not, I'm not really affecting my septic system because the septic is designed to house however many fixtures. So, pardon me, I'm a little bit concerned about that just as a statement. I understand additional use and I understand moving down too far. And I do believe there are some people, there's an individual around the corner from me who has a full, like 50 foot deep, 66 feet or 75 feet of dock wide with a 70 foot wide boathouse with 0 slips. And that is not the intent of a boathouse. I fully get that. I be honest, where I would love to go with this and understand, because it is prevalent, people who have to walk up considerable amount of stairs to their cottage. And trust me, as someone who's in real estate, I see it regularly where there can be 75, 100, 200 stairs to get up to the cottage. When they want to come down and spend time on the dock, number one, they may want a bathroom down there. And number two, they don't want to go up and out. It's not just to get in the boat and go on the water. They want to sit and swim and relax. And sometimes it's nice just to be in and around the water. And I think that's one of the unique characteristics of Muskoka. So I guess, we saw an application this morning, or 2 applications, where 100% of the boathouse slips were decked in. I don't believe that's appropriate at all. I fully don't. I don't want to build another house on the water for recreation. But I would suggest that if we picked a number, that we allowed 33%, a third of the boathouse. If I had 3 slips, one of the slips could be converted so that I could sit indoors, out of the sun. I contain my noise inside. I'm not partying outside or doing whatever. And I think that is an appropriate answer. And it's I'll use the word, a good compromise, because people do want to be down on the water. And they comply for, I'd rather have them have a bathroom down there than walking up to the tree on the shoreline necessarily, or jumping in the lake. Let's be honest. And you're going to have lunch down there and you sit on the dock. And I guarantee you there's every person here has at one point sat on the dock and had a sandwich or had a cocktail or done whatever. And that's all that people are trying to do, and maybe move that inside a little bit. So I would support looking at a restriction to 33% going forward of decked in slip area inside the boathouse.
Okay, anyone else? I'll put my 2 cents worth in there. I think the concern, it's not getting out of the sun and sitting, it's full kitchens are going in there now, and great big Samsung TVs. And so the noise level it's becoming a entertainment area, not about the water, it's about other things. And when we get our dark sky stuff in as regulations, I'm not sure what that does to the people who want to watch the game at midnight down in their boathouse with this great big screen flashing everywhere. So I think the concern for me is the full kitchen. It's not a bathroom. I agree with you. As long as it's above a flood level, then and it's properly plumbed, that's fine. But I also agree that we have to have some sort of a percentage that is open water within a boathouse to keep it as a boathouse. So that's my comment. Anyone else? Councillor Mazan?
Thank you, and through you. I mean, I think the thought is that this is something to be discussed during the official plan process, and it's not an easy one. A question, and maybe this is through staff, an easy way to maybe mitigate the visual impact, because I think that's also something that when you have a 75, what you just described, Mayor Harding, you know, when you have the size and scale of something like that, and then you have the boathouse on top, it's large. And I think I've heard loud and clear from people that that's more and more commonly going in. One idea is, do we contemplate saying there's a maximum width of dock that is allowed for a boathouse? Because very quickly then, you're not going to get a 75-foot dock with a boathouse on top. So again, if it's something to be contemplated, and maybe it's not something we need to address right this moment. I think that is something to be thought of or considered as we look to the official plan.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards?
Yes, I think we should bring this forward to the public, and that when we're doing the official plan. But, you know, taking 33%, right now we allow a boathouse 75 by 50, that's 3,750 square feet. So we're allowing them basically 1,200 square feet. That's another cottage on the water, and that's what we're trying to actually discourage. But we'll leave it up to the public and that to come through. Right now, we do allow a washroom in there, and we allow some storage, and that it's just gotten out of hand, especially when somebody can build a boathouse, close all the slips off, make it into a cottage, and then ask for extras on the side. So I think the public should be giving their input. I'm not going to say what it should be. Leave it to the public, and we'll just try and enforce it the way our bylaws and everything is written. Thank you.
Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Bridgman. I do want to recall or remind council that it was we as a planning group, at least, sorry, not council, as committee, asked for this to come back to this environment today. So thank you, David, for that. And I certainly agree with the mayor. I certainly agree with what Councillor Edwards has said. I don't want to leave it to the public, but I would like to invite the public's comment. I think this is a very fractious issue. I think we either need to hire 10 new bylaw enforcement officers with boats and go out there and either clean it up to what the bylaw says now, and or create a new bylaw that is more inclusive of this concept and come to terms with it. So I guess it's news at 11. I certainly think we should be talking about it. We should have this on the table, and we should be finding solutions. 33%, great idea. A washroom, great idea. What color sofa, what TV, etc. I think based on size, this is never going to be an easy one, because if you're allowed a large boathouse and you have the financial support to create it, you're pretty much allowed to, you know, finish the inside and do the things you do. It's actually the township that hasn't actually put the foot on the brake and said, here is the criteria. And I think we need to create that. We need to understand what the public thinks should happen now, and we should then enact that. So thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody else have any comments on this? Councillor Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, and to Mr. Allen. We asked you to bring this back for guidance. I don't think we've given you really any guidance, have we?
Mr. Allen, would you like to answer that?
For you. And Mr. Pink could fill in as well. I think the important direction is in the new official plan. Presently, there isn't a lot of guidance in the current policies that allow us to bring in additional restrictions related to docks and boathouses. The M&R does have some policies that the township does need to be aware of. They do not allow habitable space to be located on the first floor of a boathouse. They only permit the habitable space to be located on the second floor. They do allow a washroom to be installed and some small accessory spaces, but it's my understanding the M&R does not permit the first story of a boathouse use to be habitable space. It's intended to be used for storage of boats. At this point, though, I don't think we were looking at amending the bylaw, with any direction from this meeting. I think the bigger question is, kind of getting a flavor of around the table and see if this conversation should continue.
Oh, definitely. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, I think in 2014 it says that the first story use of any boathouse is limited to the berthing and sheltering of boats and other marine related equipment, and a washroom and a sauna and utility room. That's it. That's what our bylaws say right now. And I think that we should go by that unless the public wants something different.
I agree.
Okay. Mayor Harding.
Thank you, and I appreciate that comment. And I agree, these are our bylaws. I think Councillor Edwards said it best. I think we do need to get this out to the public. I think we need to contemplate this potentially in our official plan. Clearly, the public do want something different because they're building properties and they're building places like this. So we know that from a development perspective, that's what they want. Now, we may say no to that, and I totally understand, and the general population may say no to that as to what they want going forward. There are many old boathouses that have living area, the whole bottom end. There's a place on Horseshoe Island, the mouth of Lake Muskoka. There are no slips. The cottage is on the dock. It's been built that way. So anyway, I'm more than happy, and I think we should be taking this to the public and getting more public input before we have to make changes or do anything else. But clearly, we saw one application with side-by-side cottages and living accommodation, another one we dealt with last month. So it's in front of us, and I think the public should chime in.
Director Pink.
Thank you, Chair Bridgeman. Just to provide a bit of background, or I guess the type of direction or guidance. I think Councillor Roberts asked if we were receiving that. I think, as you all know, we're going through an official plan review process, and we can utilize that project process to engage with the public and continue this discussion at future meetings, and that's certainly a reasonable outcome of today's meeting. I think Councillor Mazan mentioned, for example, the boathouses are large. We can look at reducing those sizes. We need to be careful to stay within the official plan. So the official plan very specifically limits the size of docks and boathouses. So if we want to change things like that, yes, we need to do that through the official plan review process. However, as Councillor Hayes correctly pointed out, the current policies and the current bylaw clearly don't allow living space in the first story of a boathouse. And if you go back, that was the reason for staff's original report when we brought this to you approximately 2 years ago. We see fish cleaning stations and no slips inside a boathouse on what feels like virtually every boathouse permit we issue. And it got to the point where staff felt we need to bring that to council's attention, that clearly this is occurring. It's not in accordance with our bylaws, and whether we wanted to take steps to close those loopholes. So what I mean by that is you don't necessarily have to go through the official plan review process because the bylaws currently don't allow this activity. If you want, what staff can be directed to do is commence a rezoning, a municipally initiated amendment to the zoning bylaw. And through that process, you would have a public meeting. Newspaper ad, website information would be given out that the rules regarding docks and boathouses will be changing, whether it's 33% or what, we could come back and have those discussions. And then you would gain the public input through that process. So I think you have some options there, whether you want to include it as a more broader review as part of the official plan, or whether you wish to hide this out and deal with it simply through a zoning change that can be done much quicker. My only last comment on that is, and I think Councillor Hubbard's noted this as the last item, I really question whether staff can take off another sort of fairly significant project again at this time, especially with Mr. Allen's departure. It's going to be a challenge to undertake that kind of change. I think you might expect to receive a lot of comments from the public on an issue like that, and it can be quite time consuming for staff. But just wanted to clarify, again, sort of the options in front of you.
Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. And again, for clarity, to ensure that the township isn't an enabler of these projects, when these wonderful drawings and plans come forward, these proposals, and it shows 2 boat slips and then a wonderful open completed area with, maybe it's just an open area. Do we simply approve those now? I mean, they're all there. They come forward. Here's my plan. If they're not approved, then they're building without they're not approved. They're not permissible. So I would imagine that people come into our corporation and show us their plans, and we say yep, and off we go. Off we let them go. So is it? I guess 2 parts to my question, if I might, Chair. Is that the case? Number one. Do we embrace the plans that come forward, 2 slips and a recreation area now? And have we been?
Again, I don't know if embrace is the right word, but you are generally correct. What the difficulty is, and just to give a bit of background, Council saw this issue, I think it was in 2008, and that was actually our previous interim control bylaw prior to the net. We were seeing boathouses being converted into living spaces. And at the time, you could partition the first story of your boathouse into multiple rooms, and we were seeing washrooms and what clearly were rooms in the first story of the boathouse. And we went through a planning exercise, passed an interim control bylaw, went through the planning exercise, and we amended our zoning bylaw, the outcome of that, to prohibit individual rooms in the first story of a boathouse. So what's happening, I think the first part of your question, yes, we're seeing large open spaces, and we're seeing labels on those drawings that they are marine-related storage. And there's usually a fish cleaning station in that marine-related storage area. So the building department, the chief building official, cannot accuse or imply or assume that things are being used for different purposes. If they are signing an application and their drawings show compliance, the chief building official is obligated to issue those. And hence why planning staff came forward and recognized we have an issue here. We addressed the problem in 2008. Architects and planning consultants are always one step ahead. They've now found a way around that issue. Do we want to address this further change in the type of development we're seeing? So that's hence why Mr. Allen brought forward the report about 2 years ago.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we're getting quite an echo.
Oh, that was probably me. I'm sorry.
If I could just follow up, Chair, if I could.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Thank you very much, and to you, David, certainly through you. So we're well aware that it's going on, and in fact, if somebody built a 54-foot high structure that we had given them approval to build a 38-foot high structure through the building inspection process and the timely aspects to building that project, we would see, and I can drive over to a few of them right now. Our mayor has acknowledged, and others have. So we're well aware that they're there. We must be. We put people on site we put people on the property to look at the various aspects of the project as it goes on. Are we not enabling this whole, I mean, I would think if we're even going to look at a rule going forward, it surely can't be reflective of the past performance, because anybody that we would go and approach as a bylaw enforcement piece would get a bigger lawyer than ours and say, you guys have not got a foot to stand on. So am I wrong about that? I'm not trying to be flippant, but it seems that, you know, you're right. We do need to look at this. If we're that concerned about it, we need to have some teeth in something, because right now, in fact, we're allowing it.
Well, as you said, hopefully there's no echo anymore. Like you said, exactly, it's a bylaw enforcement issue. And I think you mentioned in previous comments, do we need 10 additional bylaw officers? I think you would need probably double that to really go out on patrol. The difficulty is we might receive the odd complaint. We will go out and you need to document and actually witness the activity occurring in the boathouse. So it's not good enough to go by and see a couch. That couch is being stored there. It's not good enough to go by and you know, make assumptions that things are being used. You need to actually document that. Obviously, we're not allowed inside buildings, so that's another difficulty. When the bylaw officer is on site, we cannot force our way into buildings. So that's why, hence, again, staff suggestion, if council wishes to address this, I think we need to look at it more from a building form perspective, because that's what we can control in a zoning bylaw. So right now, you can build, as was noted, a 75-foot wide boathouse, 50 feet out, and there's no requirement to have an open slip within it. So we need to get creative in the language of our bylaw to, if it's going to be one open room, that's fine, but there has to be also open water. It's going to be a challenge. I don't want to mislead council. Previous terms of council staff have looked at it, and it's difficult to craft a bylaw, but that would be the direction I would recommend we pursue, if that's the direction from council that they wish to address this. The other alternative, as we heard, I think from Mayor Harding, you know, we can go through the official plan review process and perhaps come up with a modified plan that allows some living space. I think you need to take, you know, our recent flooding history into account in those types of decisions and other matters as well. There's some pitfalls. I think my largest concern, and I think it's noted in Mr. Allen's report, if you allow just a little bit of living space, it becomes even that much harder to enforce. That door, if you open it a crack, it's slammed wide open. So I really would struggle with saying you can have a bit without potential abuse. But we will continue to do our best as per the direction of council.
Councillor Edwards?
Yes, thank you, Chair Bridgeman. Another thing we should be looking at is water depths in boathouses. And that if you can go up 50 feet in that, if you've got a foot of water at the front of the boathouse near shore, and that you can probably put a boat in there. I was checking Parker's the other day with some large boats down there. The front's basically in 12 inches of water. 30 to 36 inches gives them lots. I've got my boat in the slip. I don't even have to lift the out drive up, and I got less than 43 inches of water. So I think we've been just letting people do what they want, push them out just because they can get out further in the water. And I think the measurement should have to be verified, and that before we move anything out off the shore, if that's the way we want.
Okay, just throw out one more thought, because we're talking about how big these boathouses are getting. Perhaps we don't do two-story boathouses anymore. I spoke actually with Mayor Harding about this. Boy, look at his eyes. Wow. Perhaps we move those sleeping quarters off of the shoreline, and then we don't have such a huge built form on our shoreline. I just throw that out as a suggestion. I think you need to look at everything. So that's just another thought for now. So anyone else? I mean, it sounds to me like redoing our bylaw would give us the quickest, most effective, but there is no way we can do that at this point with everything else going on, in my humble opinion. But I'm open to anybody else's thoughts on that. Okay. Oh, Councillor Roberts?
Yes, you sort of opened the door up, and I think we discussed it a lot about enforcement. And I guess I'd like to go on record. I know that I've talked with this Councillor Bridgeman, Councillor Hayes, Councillor Kelly. We really need to beef up our enforcement. And I think with the next process, the next go around for our budget, I'd like to see staff come back and basically give us a number and an idea on what we should do to actually enforce the rules that we have. So I don't know how I officially asked that, but I think it should be included in the budget process.
I think Mr. Pink would like to answer. I'm going to guess he probably already has that message fairly loud and clear.
Thank you. Yes, I think you will be seeing something in next year's budget in that regard. I think the general consensus maybe to try to land the plane. I get the sense there's maybe some desire to have some more comprehensive changes, whether it's the overall dock and boathouse size, maybe even 2 stories. I think given that, you're probably wading into official plan territory, and it might be best to, through that process, engage with the public and see what changes emanate from that, and then we can proceed with the zoning bylaw as soon as possible once that project is complete.
Oh, is he waving? Sorry, Mayor Harding, I'm going to let Councillor Kelly wait because his little blue hand isn't working, and I think he's been waiting a while.
Thank you, and through you. I just wanted to make one quick comment. I totally support Councillor Roberts' comments about more enforcement, but I really think before we can turn it over to anybody, David, Pink, or anyone, and ask for budgeting, I think we really need to have a conversation among council to give better direction than we want more. I think we have a lot of overhauling to do to our attitude about enforcement, to the whole role of relying on neighbors, ratting out neighbors as opposed to us seeking out and looking for offenses. And before we can kind of nail some of that stuff down, I don't really think I think it'd just be throwing something against the wall to try to guess what we need for enforcement. So I applaud the initiative for more. I just think that council needs to drive how much more and where it needs to be focused and how we see it operating before anybody can start putting numbers to it. Thank you.
Okay, so Mayor Harding, I'm going to let you speak, and we're getting a little off topic now,
Yep.
so I'm going to shut down the other part of the enforcement. I think that's come through fairly loud and clear.
Yeah, no, I just, again, I think this should be a question in our OP review if we can put it out there where they want on boathouses. Just as a question to help get some direction, I think might help us. From an enforcement perspective, and I appreciate Mr. Pink's comment that as soon as we allow a little bit, we won't be able to do anything. But let's be fully honest here. We allow nothing right now, and it's going on like crazy. And not to mention the fact, and I am aware, and I know Mr. Pink, you're aware, of many boathouses where we have tried to enforce this, and it falls on deaf ears. And trying to get the background and the photographic evidence that I was sitting there and I was watching my Samsung TV, which again, I don't know the plus or minus or why, but all of those kinds of things. We saw pictures of the report today with a fireplace in there. You know, again, until we say you're not allowed a TV, not allowed whatever, and then we saw the TV, I'm storing the furniture until we get photographs of the guy sitting there having a cocktail doing whatever. Then we take them to court. Then we find out what's going on. Then. We're talking about multiple years from an enforcement perspective. And so I'm very cautious of that, knowing again what's going on. And I don't believe that if we allow some very few people who build a 50-foot or 70-foot wide boat, the reason you're building 3 or 4 slips is because you've got 3 or 4 boats. You may sacrifice one, but people traditionally want to put boats in a boathouse, not strictly the smaller lots. I agree. And some people just say, hey, I'm going to park my boat outside. But when you get these mega multi-cottages, the boats are all indoors, polished, stored, done, finished boathouses, and as Councillor Zavit said, and the inside of the boathouse is nicer than my own personal home. So I get that. And but for me, I would never give up a slip because I want to keep my boats indoors. So I think we need to get some information back from the public the most expeditious way we can to understand this and give us some better direction.
Okay, thank you. So we'll make sure that that's part of our public meeting on the 26th. Could come up. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on now, and thank you, Mr. Allen, for coming back with that again. We're going to move on to the Heritage and Attainable Housing minutes. Everybody should have read them, could have read them. I'm going to just suggest if there's any questions, Councillor Hayes is here to answer them. Councillor Hayes, do you want to mention once again the Habitat for Humanity? We'll give it another little public announcement.
Wednesday, the 23rd at 1 p.m. It's not a public event because of the numbers. Invitations have been issued, and if you haven't responded, please do, because all of council was invited and some planning staff and CAO, I believe. So, yeah.
Sorry, I said I did reply. Thank you for the reminder the other day. Any questions about the minutes? All right, and I think we will receive the minutes.
And by the way, I'm coming to Nelda too. Sorry, I think I replied, but I'm coming.
Okay, so now we're down to new business. Anybody on new business? Any new business at all? And LPAT status, I think that's just Mr. Pink has an update for us. This is where I'm going off the rails right now.
Thank you. Just quickly, there were two recent decisions just to bring to Planning Committee's attention. The first on the Bylaw Bay Inn, that was circulated to Council. Likely Council is aware, or if you have reviewed that, the LPAT did approve of the bylaw. So staff quarters as a permitted main use is now permitted on that property. And also we received recently the written order on the Rothney minor variance. Again, perhaps Councillor Edwards is most familiar with that. It was two minor variances that were submitted. The first was approved, the second was defeated. The property owner appealed that. It was for a modest lot coverage increase. The LPAT did approve that after a settlement was reached between the owner and the municipality. Happy to answer any questions on those two or any other ongoing LPAT matters if committee has any questions.
Committee, any questions at all? I'm not seeing any, so, sorry? None, okay, great. Okay, all right, so then we're not going into closed session, so I believe we're down to adjournment. So let me read this motion. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that Planning Committee adjourn at 3:30 p.m. and the next regular meeting of Planning Committee will be held on Thursday, October 15th, 2020 at 9 a.m. in the Council Chambers Municipal Offices in Port Carling, Ontario. All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone. It's been a busy week. Yeah. Yeah, busy couple of days. So we'll see everybody Zoom again. Bye. Have a good weekend.